As we continue to deep dive into the Raiders 2025 NFL schedule, the team in general continues to build up their front office and show that they are trying to be a very serious organization. That plus more on Friday's edition of the Locked On Raiders podcast for May 16th, 2025.
You are Locked On Raiders, your daily Las Vegas Raiders podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
And welcome in, Raider Nation, to another edition of the Locked On Raiders podcast. Thank you so much for making the show your first listen of the day. We definitely appreciate you. If you're catching the show wherever you find your favorite podcast, that's great. You're checking us out by way of the YouTube page, that's great as well. The show continues to grow either way, and it continues to grow each and every day. And that's because of your support, you checking in every day to the show and telling others about it. We definitely appreciate that. There's nothing better than word of mouth. And then on top of that, obviously the great job that my man Ari does behind the scenes each and every day, making sure we look good and sound good on the YouTube page. We couldn't do it without him, so we definitely shout him out. We appreciate him. Does a fantastic job. He's on Twitter at Ari Produces. If you want to hit me up, you can hit me up as well at your boy Q254. And as you know, if you want to be a part of the show, we got the Locked On Raider podcast voicemail line at 707-654-4693. A lot of great feedback that we'll close out the show with. Segment number 3, your calls, your texts, lots of good stuff to talk about from a variety of different subjects. So you'll hear from Raider Nation, obviously, in segment number 3. That's how we like to close things out, not only for the show, but also close things out for the week. Segment number 2, continuing to take a deep dive and a look at the Raiders schedule, trying to go over it with a fine-tooth comb, check it out with a magnifying glass, look at upside, downside, around side, back, whatever the case may be, right? Just looking at every element of the schedule. There's a stretch in the schedule that I found that I think is something that's being overlooked. It's not small, but it's kind of small, but it's not. I know that doesn't make sense, but that's okay. It's just an element of the schedule, something that really it took me a few times going over it before I really noticed it, and it stood out, and I thought, oh, wow, hold on. Wait a minute. That's something pretty sweet there for the silver and black. So I'll explain all that in segment number 2 as we continue to talk about the Raiders schedule. Here in segment number 1, just news and notes of the day, and it really has to do with the Raiders continuing to be a serious organization and continuing to add serious people to their front office. On Thursday, the Raiders put out the email. Brandon Hunt has joined the Raiders as Vice President of Player Personnel. He comes to the Raiders from the Philadelphia Eagles, where he was part of the Super Bowl championship team. Most recently served as the Senior Director of Scouting in 2024 after 2 seasons as the Director of Scouting in 2022 through 2023. Before that, in Philadelphia, Hunt spent 12 seasons as the pro scouting coordinator for the Steelers. In that role, he was responsible for scouting opponents and evaluating pro players. From 2007 to 2009, Hunt served as a pro scout with the Texans after working as an intern in the Steelers scouting department from 2005 to 2006, where he was part of the staff on that Super Bowl championship team. So there you go. Obviously, there's some nice accolades when it comes to Brandon Hunt. But what I'm seeing, and rock with me, Raider Nation, is that John Spytek and company continue to bring in guys from organizations that are in the habits of winning, right? And having a lot of great talent on their roster. The Philadelphia Eagles, I believe Howie Roseman and their front office do it better than anyone right now. They are on a run where all the personnel decisions that they're making seem to be coming out like smelling like roses. So for John Spytek, for multiple times now to be able to dip into that Philadelphia Eagles well, and go and get, some of their personnel guys, I think that's fantastic. He got some guys from Tampa Bay. He's got some guys from Denver. He got a guy from the New York Jets. And look, I know the New York Jets, you could look at and say, yeah, but that's not a winning organization. No, they're not, but they have some real talent on their organization, right? And the year that the guy from the Jets, who's now with the Raiders, was there, they were also responsible for getting the offensive player of the rookie of the year and also the defensive rookie of the year all in the same class. So the thing about it is just collecting really good talent. And not to mention, when you bring these guys in from these organizations, why do people change jobs, right? Why would you change a job? You would probably change a job for what? A better job title, and what else? Better money. So with what the Raiders are doing, bringing all these guys in, and they're bringing them with the Vice President of Player Personnel title. Obviously, that's going to come with the pay raise. So you have to look at the ownership. You have to look at Mark Davis. You have to look at Tom Brady. You have to look at the whole new minority ownership group. They are sparing no expense to try to get this thing right. That's something that I really respect when I see the way that they're continuing to try to put this together and make sure that this front office is able to continue to bring in the personnel that the Raiders are going to need to not only be successful in 2025, but for years to come, which is something that all of Raider Nation so desperately wants, which is something that I so desperately want. I don't want to see when the Raiders go to the playoffs in 2016, then they don't go again until 2021. Then all of a sudden they don't go back again until 2025 or 2020. You know what I mean? Like, you want to be a team because you have so much talent, you have great leadership, you have great structure, that you're able to consistently be that playoff team, that organization that's threatening the playoffs every single year, and not only threatening the playoffs, but threatening to go deep and even make a Super Bowl run. That's how you put everything together. What else stands out to me about Brandon Hunt in particular is when people that I know, and I know a lot of people in the business, but when they reach out to me, when they see the Raiders make a hire like this and start giving me glowing reviews about this guy without me asking for it, that always kind of says a lot to me that, hey, this guy is vouching for this dude, and I never even asked. So I had someone from the Pittsburgh sports market that I know really well, and no, it's not Christopher Carter, but someone who does sports radio there in Pittsburgh, immediately after the Brandon Hunt news went out there and it was out on social media, sent me a direct message on Twitter and said, Brandon Hunt, hands down, one of the best people on this earth. Again, hands down, simply a wonderful person. When you meet him, you will have a great source and person who will be open and honest. His father died while he was in high school. He lived with a friend of mine. I've known him a long, long time. He's the best of the best. So again, that was just a sports radio guy from Pittsburgh, and Brandon Hunt spent a lot of time in Pittsburgh. Obviously, the nugget there about his father, so he's got a little bit of a human interest story as well. But when guys, you start getting information from people about guys without asking for it. When the Raiders hire someone from Denver, and all of a sudden I get somebody from the Denver market and be like, man, that's a really good hire. Watch out for that one. Like that stands out to me when people vouch for guys without, being requested. It's like if all of a sudden I get a job somewhere and, or you get a job and all of a sudden I know that you're coming in and someone reaches out to me and is like, hey man, so-and-so, Raider Nation fan, 101, man, that dude's awesome. You're going to love that guy, right? Without me saying anything, that tells me a lot about you and how much respect that you have from that person that's obviously reaching out on your behalf without me asking for any kind of reference or anything. So that always stands out to me in a major way. So that's the latest and the greatest when it comes to the Raiders front office. New vice president of player personnel, Brandon Hunt, was hired on Thursday. We've continued to do deep dives into Pete Carroll and, his coaching style, what he brings to the table, expectations. I heard my guy, Evan Cohen from Unsportsmanlike on ESPN Radio, was talking on Thursday morning. I was driving into the radio station really early, and I heard him talking, and he mentioned something about Steve Kerr, the Warriors head coach, and Pete Carroll. And he was telling a story about there's a book out there that these guys actually their coaching style comes from this book. So as I continue to do some research, apparently and it's funny, this guy, Chris Ballard, who was a longtime writer for SI, actually wrote a piece in SI.com about it, and it's called The Little Known Book That Shaped the Minds of Steve Kerr and Pete Carroll, How an Instructional Book on Tennis Became a Cult Favorite of the Coaches of the Warriors and the Seahawks. So, pretty interesting stuff. I definitely encourage you to, go ahead and check it. Again, just, search, Google that little title that I just gave you, The Little Known Book That Shaped the Minds of Steve Kerr and Pete Carroll, and you'll be able to read the whole article. But pretty fascinating that those guys, very successful coaches, obviously both have won championships, college level, pro level, Steve Kerr obviously in the NBA, and Pete Carroll in football, college football, and in the NFL. There a lot of their coaching styles and a lot of their, coaching philosophies come from this book about tennis that is apparently it's about the size of like a Reader's Digest, if you remember those books from back in the day. So I found that to be pretty interesting that's what it is. So go ahead and check that out. Again, SI.com. This article actually goes back to 2016. It's from Chris Ballard, SI.com. Again, the little known book that shaped the minds of Steve Kerr and Pete Carroll, how an instructional book on tennis became a cult favorite of the coaches of the Warriors and also the Seahawks. Finally, here in segment number one, wanted to pass along this sound from Lindsay Rhodes from SumerSports.com. She was a guest on my radio show on Wednesday. She was a guest on the show right before, matter of fact, the schedule dropped, and she's a real numbers analytics person. And so I was asking her about the schedule release and just as a whole, not just for the Raiders, but in general, what she was looking for in the schedule. But then we got back to talking about the Raiders, and the last time I caught up with her was at the scouting combine, and that's when the Raiders were still kind of in play for Matt Stafford. Obviously, they didn't land him, but they did land Geno Smith. So I asked her what she thought about the Raiders offense moving forward. Here's Lindsay Rhodes from Wednesday on my radio show talking about the Raiders offense. When we spoke at the combine, we were talking about the chances of the Raiders landing Matt Stafford. We know that didn't happen, but they did land Geno Smith. They got Geno. They drafted Genty. They brought in some, obviously they had the draft. They brought in their free agents and all that. Oh, and Chip Kelly's offense coordinator. How do you think this Raiders offense looks with Geno Smith as quarterback, Genty as the lead dog running back, and all of a sudden Chip Kelly is pushing the buttons as the OC?
Look, I might be, and I've said this all along, like I think that there's a built-in bias where I'm kind of just like stuck on optimism for the Raiders. But I think that the offense could be so much better than last year. I think at the very least, this is going to be a professional organization. And I don't mean that disparagingly about years past, but like, I think the intro even referenced kind of like the politics and the drama and like, you're settled. Like Pete Carroll is a professional. He's going to know how to run this stuff, right? And then you bring in Geno, who's a professional quarterback. He's a very accurate quarterback. His strengths are in his accuracy. You get Ashton Genty behind him. Like, I just think that the way that it all comes together kind of makes sense to me. And I don't think you're going to be anywhere near, the bottom five. The Raiders were bottom 10 in just about everything last year, bottom 5 in most things. You're not going near that this year. I think you've automatically, your starting point is we are a league average offense, and I think that there is so much potential there for them to be in at the end of the year, optimistically, in a playoff push.
So there was Lindsay Rhodes right there, SumerSports.com, talking about the Raiders offense. And, you heard how she said they weren't going to be like they were last year, where they were really bad, right? Matter of fact, she thinks that they're going to be pretty good. And there's a potential at the end of the season that they could be fighting for a playoff spot. And they really can, especially with the way that the schedule is shaped out and the way that it ends as well. And I talked about that on Thursday's show, that Week 18 game against the Chiefs, that could mean nothing or that could mean everything. And boy, oh boy, how exciting would it be if it absolutely meant something. But I'll talk about the schedule. There's another part of the schedule that stood out to me that I definitely want to bring to the table. And again, it seems like it could be a small element, but it's not really a small element, right? So we'll talk about that coming up. Segment number 2 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Before we get to that, though, I do want to tell you about one of the great sponsors here on this show, and that is Gametime. There's nothing like the NBA playoffs. The intensity, the buzzer beaters, the fans losing their minds. It's the kind of atmosphere you must experience live. And this year's matchups are already delivering. If you want it, Gametime makes it fast and easy to get seats even for the biggest playoff games. Prices on the app actually drop closer to tip-off. And with great last-minute deals, panoramic seat views, and no surprise fees, Gametime is a total game changer. Matter of fact, if you're looking for Game 7 tickets, the Nuggets and OKC, there's a Game 7. You're looking for that? Gametime can help you get there. You can actually see the exact view of the seat before you actually buy them. That's one of the examples, and that's one of the features of this that I really do enjoy. Like I said, the panoramic seat views, that's awesome. And the Gametime guarantee, you're getting the best deal. If you find a better price in the same row and section, they'll credit you 110% of the difference. Gametime makes scoring NFL tickets just as easy. So if you want to go to the Raiders and the Chargers, that first home game at Allegiant Stadium, Monday Night Football, you'll find great seats for as low as $100 thanks to exclusive discounts. And with Gametime Guarantee, your tickets are 100% authentic. They'll arrive on time. You always get the best price with fees included. So what you see is what you pay. If you never used Gametime to grab NFL seats, well, now's the time. It's seriously a game day upgrade. Right now, take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the app, create the account, use promo code LOCKEDONNFL. It's all one word for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. Again, create the account, use the promo code LOCKEDONNFL, LOCKEDON NFL for $20 off. Download the Gametime app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. All right, Raider Nation, here we go. Segment number 2 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. I want to continue to deep dive into the Raiders 2025 NFL schedule. And, we'll go over it so many times. We'll go over it with a fine-tooth comb. We'll find the little sweet spots in the schedule where you think, well, maybe the Raiders could take advantage of this, this sweet spot real quick. And, maybe the Raiders can jump up and surprise this team right there. And, hey, maybe you look up and you'll see 10 or 11 wins. And, of course, I've heard so many different varieties and ranges of wins. I've seen as low as like 6 wins on the season to as many as like 13. I had a guy call my radio show on Thursday that said, tell me why the Raiders aren't going to be 6-0 going into that week 7 matchup against the Chiefs. And I was like, well, first of all, because it's hard to go undefeated in the NFL. 6-0 is a tall task, right? But I get it, right? I can understand the optimism. There are teams in that top 7 games or top 6 games before Kansas City that are going to be tough, like the Commanders, like the Chargers, who both were playoff teams a year ago. Obviously, Kansas City is week 7, but there's games, and I said, look, I see 4 wins in the front 7, so that's fine. That's not that far off, and they get a ball to bounce their way, they get a couple breaks, or they just come out playing a lot better than the other team. Anything's possible. Sure, they could be 6-0, but I'm not going to try to sell you on 6-0 going into that week 7 game against the Kansas City Chiefs, because I just don't think I'd be doing you a justice, and I sure wouldn't be doing myself a justice. I'd really be trying to sell some Kool-Aid that flavor probably went out of style already, right? Like I talk about Purple Saurus Rex all the time, and most people say they ain't even never heard of that. So I don't want to sell you something that you've never heard of and try to tell you and convince you that the Raiders are going to be 6-0 heading into week 7. I'm not going to do that. But what I am going to focus on right here is a spot on the schedule where it's a stretch of games, where it's a handful of games, but it seems like a small little element, a small sweet spot that I found that really isn't that small. And I don't think it's being talked about enough. I feel like it's kind of being overlooked. So let's start with that week 7 game. That's Sunday, October 19th at Kansas City, okay? Then they go into their bye week. So the final game they play on the road is October 19th. So their bye week basically starts on October 20th, that Monday. So they go through their bye week. Then they come out of their bye week. The first game they play is November 2nd, Jacksonville. That's at home. So they have the bye week, and then they're at home. Then 4 short days later, they go to the Denver Broncos Thursday Night Football. And my guy Ryan Hogue, former Raiders wide receiver, he was actually at the radio station on Thursday, and he told me Thursday night games in Denver should be outlawed in the NFL. He said that those should be basically criminal. Those should be, just thrown out of the schedule makers even mind. Like, that shouldn't be a thing. And I said, really, why? And he said, well, Q, nobody wants to go to Denver short, on a short week, only 4 days in between games. And then you're playing in those elements, you're playing in the, the altitude and everything. He's like, it's just no player wants that. He said, so that is a part of the schedule that I don't like. So that was something that I wouldn't know. I'm not a player. I've actually even never been to Denver, so I couldn't tell you what it's like, what the altitude feels like, and he's talking about that from experience. So that stood out to me. But with that being said, again, remember, the bye week starts on October 20th. November 2nd is a Jacksonville game. November 6th, they're in Denver. But after that Denver game, which is a Thursday Night Football, they're off all the way until November 17th, which is Monday. And I talked about this in pretty good detail on Thursday's show. It's almost like having a little mini bye, right? Because you play on November 6th and then you're off for, you don't play again for 11 days. And then you play Monday Night Football at home against Dallas. So here's the first time that you play at home back-to-back games. November 17th, you got the Cowboys. Then Sunday, November 23rd, you got the Cleveland Browns. Then Sunday, November 30th, you're at the LA Chargers. So you're at SoFi Stadium. So you're not at home. You're not at Allegiant Stadium, but you're only a quick hop, skip, and a jump away from home, right? So it's not like you're going on some massive road trip to the East Coast, right? You're literally going right down the highway, going to LA. That takes no time to get there, right? And you're good, and then you're back home. And then Sunday, December 7th, you're back at home with the Denver Broncos. So basically, coming out of the bye week, 5 out of your 6 games are either at home or LA. The only game that is really a bugaboo and something that no player is going to like is that Thursday night, November 6th at the Denver Broncos, that primetime action Thursday Night Football. So you have to take advantage of that. If you're the Raiders, you have to be able to take advantage of a stretch in your schedule where it's favorable to you as far as travel. Now, these are not easy games, right? Denver's not going to be easy. Dallas is not going to be easy. The Browns look like a game that they should get. The Chargers, the Raiders are always going to play the Chargers tough. I feel like they should split with them. And then you got the Broncos again. So you've got 2 You got three. Yeah, you got 3 divisional games in this stretch that I'm talking about. 2 with Denver, 1 with the Chargers. You've got 4, 5. You've got 5 AFC conference games in this stretch that I'm talking about. And most of it, again, the proximity is right in your backyard. So at some point, that's the spot in your schedule. It's like, okay, if the schedule makers did us a favor, it's right there. Again, you play on October 19th on the road in KC. You get your bye week. You start that on October 20th, and you're at home, obviously, for that. And so you stay at home all the way through the November 2nd game, quick trip to Denver on November 6th, and boom, you're back home. The 17th, 23rd, LA on the 30th, back home on the 7th, right? It's almost like the whole month of November, you're just about at the crib, right? You're not too far from it, right? And if you ain't at the house, you're in the neighborhood, right? And so you have to, as the Raiders, as Pete Carroll and company, they have to be able to take advantage of that stretch where other teams are traveling back and forth and some teams are going international and whatever the case may be. And I know that there's like 3 or 4 games that the Raiders are going to get with teams coming off of buys. That's fine because you're about as rested as you could possibly be at that part of the schedule. I always talk about it's not what you do in September and October. It's about November, December, and the first week in January. That's the way to come out in November, really guns blazing, right? If you come out in November and you take care of business, even if you just win the home games, the 2nd, the 17th, and the 23rd, if you win all your games at Allegiant Stadium, all of a sudden in the month of November, you're 3-2. That's what you want to do. You want to be able to really start flexing your muscles and showing who you are in November, leading you right into December. And again, you have a home game December 7th against the Broncos. So you can really get on a run, right? Like the Raiders got on a bad run last year. What they do, lose 10 games in a row. And that's when you knew it was like, sayonara, season's over, it's a wrap, right? Well, this could be the exact opposite. You can get on a nice little run, get everything lathered up, cooking with grease, heading in the right direction, and all of a sudden in the month of December, the rest of the league's like, whoa, what's going on there in Vegas? Watch out for those guys. And oh, by the way, if you're handling your business at home, something that every coach that's been with the Raiders so far since they've been in Las Vegas at Allegiant Stadium has said, you start to develop a home field advantage. You start getting wins at home, then you're going to get more Raider Nation to be at your games. Sunday, November 2nd against the Jaguars, I feel like that's going to be a very Raider crowd, right? Denver, obviously you're going to Denver. Dallas, they're going to show up and show out on Monday, November 17th. There's going to be plenty of Cowboy fans in the building. Browns on the 23rd, plenty of Raider Nation will be in the building. Last year, the Cleveland Browns came into Allegiant Stadium and there was a ton of Browns fans, but I'm expecting them being such a bad team this year and them not having big expectations. I'm not expecting them to show up and show out. But also, the Raiders play a role in this. They have to play and they have to win at home. Games cost too much. Flights cost too much. Rooms cost too much. Food costs too much. Everything costs too much to go and spend all your hard-earned money to go to a game and see them stink it up. They've got to start establishing a home field advantage. And oh, by the way, when you go to LA on November 30th, go win. Go win at SoFi Stadium. We always talk about it. You're home away from home. Well, prove it, right? Go to your home away from home, put your feet up on the table, use their dishes, right? Leave them out if you want. Do it. I mean, just go in there and treat it as like your, like your summer home, right? Like again, you're home away from home. It's the vacation spot. It's the spot that you don't really care about. You just go visit every once in a while. You're gonna rent it out later, so you don't really care, right? I mean, that's what they've got to do. They've finally at some point have got to learn how to win at SoFi Stadium, something that they don't do. And then they got the Denver Broncos back at home December 7th. So that's the stretch right there. Starting the bye week, and the bye week starts officially on October 20th. That stretch between October 20th and December 7th, that could be the stretch, and this is just my opinion, that decides the season for the Silver and Black. That stretch right there between October 20th and December 7th, because those games are games that are very winnable, a lot of games at home. They should be rested, and they have a somewhat extra bye week in there where they can lick their wounds and get ready for the home stretch. So that's where I'm looking at the sweet spot for the Raiders. And I know it's a big chunk, but it's a big chunk that's at the house, basically. So I'll go ahead and roll with that. That's another huge observation from the Raiders schedule in 2025. I know a lot of people always say the NFL does the Raiders dirty. I'll say that this schedule that they put out for them this year is everything but that. I believe this schedule is very favorable, very manageable for the Silver and Black. But what's on your mind? Your calls and texts will close out the show. 707-654-4693. We'll hear from you next. Here we go, Raider Nation. Segment number 3 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Your calls and texts. Closing out the show and closing out with the week. Hearing from you, 707-654-4693. Let's start things off with Raider Kales in Seattle. He's calling to talk about the Raiders' curse and what it will take for him to believe that the team truly is cursed. Here he is, Raider Kales in Seattle.
Yo, what up, Keith? It's your boy, Raider Kales, calling from Seattle. Shout out to Ari. I just want to holler at y'all about like the schedule. I'm feeling pretty good about it. I think we're gonna kill it this year. I really do. We're gonna do decent, a lot better than last year. Let me say that. I'm thinking like maybe like 9-7 somewhere up in there. But I just was gonna say it would be crazy. Now Pete Carroll, right? He's a great coach. I think he is, at least. Like I said, I'm up in here in Seattle, so I've seen him win. I've seen him continue to win a lot. I think it'll be crazy if he come here and does bad. Then I'll believe in a Raiders curse. Like, that's what I'll believe in. Like, then I'll know that it's real. There will be no frauding about that no more. I'll be like, yep, this happened. That's that curse. That's what I would think. But I don't think we curse right now. I think that we're good and we've been making grown decisions. And like you always was talking about, like serious, or like a joke or entertainment purposes only. That's what you were saying, But I think we're being serious. We got some big dogs up in the front, and we handling the front office, and we're handling business. But yeah, I think I would just be crazy if Pete Carroll does bad this year. Like, that would be nuts. And another thing is, like, last year, they were talking about the Raiders a lot. Like, I think they went to Costa Mesa and was, like you were sharing more about the Raiders last year. Now we're just like for real, suit and tie, handling business, getting stuff done. You know what I'm saying? So I'm just trying to leave this message to say, hopefully there ain't no Raiders curse. I'm thinking like 9-7, which is totally fine if we go a little bit above that or a little bit below that. And hopefully we ain't cursed. I hope we doing good. And you keep doing your thing, Q. Shout out to you and Ari. Hope y'all keep holding it down. Raider Nation, I'm out.
Kales, thanks so much for the call. And it definitely feels like a serious team, right? Been talking about that for a while. There's a lot of good vibes around the team right now. Great decisions are being made. There feels like there's no reason why the team is not good this season. Obviously, that's on paper. They've got to go out there and handle it on the field to prove everyone that's singing their praises that they're right? And not to mention prove to themselves that they're right. They've got to go out there and play the games. And yeah, I'm with you on that Raiders curse. With Pete Carroll and everything he's got cooking, wouldn't it just be something if he all of a sudden went in there and just stunk it up, be like, okay, now what's going on? Now you get a coach that, he's a seasoned coach, right? He's got the track record, been there, done that, right? The plan's in place. He's got the, the proof is already of concept is there, and then stink it up. Yeah, that would just make anyone feel like, oh yeah, this team is definitely cursed. But I'm not going to talk that up and put that into the ether because I think that they're going to be just fine. And I'm excited about what it looks like in 2025. But thanks so much for the call. I do appreciate you. Got a text from the 619, no name attached, but it says, hey Q, long time, first time. I've been on the same page as you that an 8-9 season is realistic and great progress. I don't know why, but now that the schedule is out, I'm expecting more. Pete Carroll's a Super Bowl winning coach. Chip Kelly's an experienced OC who's getting paid well. Patrick Graham is on year 4, and we have good talent in key areas. This should be a playoff team. My crazy prediction is that the final game against KC is going to be prime time, with the Raiders needing to win to make the playoffs and or they're playing for the division title. I know it's crazy, but a man could dream. Love the show, Q. Keep up the good work. Go Raiders. That's from the 619, no name attached. And what's funny, as wild and crazy as that sounds, that's why that was one of the games and one of the things that stood out to me about the schedule the most, that Week 18 game. I have that circled on my calendar. I talked about it on Raider Nation Radio 920. I talked about it on my ESPN show, Joe and Q. I talked about it. We were talking about the 5 most intriguing games and now that the schedule released. And that was number 5 for me because that game could mean everything or it could mean nothing. But I would love for it to be that 2021 scenario, right, where the Raiders ended up making the playoffs after they defeated the Chargers at Allegiant Stadium. Lil Jon's performing. Allegiant Stadium's going crazy, right? You don't know if the Raiders are going to the playoffs, if the Chargers are going to the playoffs, if both teams are going to the playoffs. Remember all the drama behind that? If they got a tie, then both teams were going to go to the playoffs. Even the Steelers were paying attention. Like, man, they needed the Raiders to win so they can get into the playoffs. Like, all eyes. It was the last game of the regular season, Sunday Night Football. Every football person, anyone who loves the NFL, all eyes, all ears were on Allegiant Stadium Sunday Night Football for that Week 18 game against the Chargers. I would love for that to be the whole scenario again, this time against the Chiefs, especially since the Raiders have not beat the Chiefs at Allegiant Stadium ever. Wouldn't that be a great way to win for the first time? You want to talk about drama. Get your first victory at home versus the Kansas City Chiefs, the hated Kansas City Chiefs, by not only beating them Week 18 with all eyes on you in prime time, but also punching your ticket to the playoffs. That would be awesome. Sign me up for that. So, that's as much as, one could dream. I don't think it's a bad dream. I think it's fantastic, and I'm right there with you. Thanks so much for the text. Definitely appreciate you. Up next, got a call from Raider Educator in the 925. He's calling to talk about the biopic on Coach Madden and Al Davis that the pictures are floating around social media. Here he is, Raider Educator in the 925.
Hey, Q, it's the Raider Educator out of the 925. Hey, there's a lot of excitement going around the Raiders right now, a lot of positivity. And another thing I wanted to mention, positive related, is the Madden movie coming out. Now, I saw on X the pictures of Nicolas Cage playing John Madden, and we got Christian Bale playing Al Davis. I think that's going to be two really good actors playing two Raider legends right there. So, I have a lot of respect for the Madden family. His sons, Mike and Joe, coached me in football. We remain friends today. Really, really good people. So I'm just so glad to see that movie coming out. When I was a head football coach at Dublin High School, Coach Madden would always invite us to his bocce ball tournament, the Madden Mariucci bocce ball tournament, and cut our program a $10,000 check just for being there. So it was a great fundraiser. And I know Coach Madden's grandson, Jesse, who was recently a GA at Michigan and won a national title, just got hired as a quality control coach with the Commanders. So again, thank you for everything the Madden family has done for Raider Nation, myself, and everything else. But what say you, Raider Nation? You guys juiced about this movie? Go Raiders!
Thanks so much, my man. And yes, really cool to see the images floating around social media. Nicolas Cage playing John Madden, and then Christian Bale as Al Davis. And the funny thing about it is I haven't said anything about it on the show or even on my radio show. I've been working kind of behind the scenes to get someone to come on the podcast or my radio show to talk about putting this whole thing together. I think that'd be awesome. Like I said, I'm working on it. I can't guarantee that it's going to happen. So if you got the plug, let me know. If you know somebody, I'm not ashamed to reach out and be like, hey man, got a radio show. Would love to get you on to talk about it. So if you know somebody that I should reach out to, because I'm definitely trying to make that happen. Very intrigued by seeing that. And I definitely think Christian Bale's going to do a phenomenal job as Al Davis, and Nicolas Cage is one of the best actors in the business. So I'm sure he's going to be phenomenal as John Madden as well. So I'm looking forward to that. And also shout out to Dublin High, man. I used to run around those parts back in the day when I was at Cal High. And even after that, I had a bunch of friends that went to Dublin High. So shout that out. That's really cool. Raider Educator, thanks so much for the call. Definitely appreciate you. Up next, got a text from Big Gaz Raider 975, or Raider 9, no, not 975, Raider 75. There you go. Big Gaz Raider 75. He said, hey, I'm here loving the show. Appreciate what you do. I love the video the Raiders put out. The schedule is very fair and winnable. I'm super excited for the season. What is the key to getting into at least the playoffs? What do we really have to do? What's going to get us there? Maybe still adding a key vet to the roster, offense or defense, or do we really have everything we need right now to get there? Go Raiders. That's Big Gaz Raider 75. Thanks so much for the text. And that's just it. It feels like they have enough talent to make a push for the playoffs, but you also have to weigh in injuries. You also have to weigh in young guys being able to translate to the NFL quickly. So they might need to get a veteran or two and add it to the roster. I think when they do that, though, if they do in fact do that, it'll be something they do in training camp. They'll wait till they see what they have. They'll go through these mandatory mini camps and their OTAs and kind of see what they see, go back and look at the film, see what these guys can do, and start to assess the situation. If they feel they need to go make a move for a veteran wide receiver, they'll do it. A veteran cornerback, they'll do it. They have the money to still do it. And I think that's why they're holding on to it, just to make sure that, if in case emergency break glass, right? Isn't that what they say? Well, if they have to do that, then that's what they'll do. That's what I believe that they're waiting for. So we'll see. But I know that Pete Carroll and John Spytek, I'm sure, would love to just be able to work with the young guys that they have and just build that moving forward with them. But at times you do need a veteran or two to come in and fill that void and take the pressure off of the young players. So thanks so much for that text. Definitely appreciate you. Up next, got a call from Tuck Rule Fool in Colorado. He's calling real quick to follow up on his call that he had about the offensive line and the Kool-Aid discussion that we had about that. Here's Tuck Rule Fool from Colorado.
Hey, Q. This is Tuck Rule Fool. Holy mackerel, man. A 2-minute call like that turned into quite a bit of material. I'm happy you were able to use it, parlay that. Great discussions. Happy to throw out some new ideas. I'm going to be thinking of some new stuff here. But that was a lot of fun. And thanks also because you have no idea. All my Raider brethren that I kind of lost touch with, not my inner crew there, were texting me. They're like, Tom, is that you? Holy crap. So that was pretty fun. Keep doing what you do. And, man, that was awesome. And, looking forward to calling in again soon. Take care, man.
Tuck Rule, thanks so much for the call, and all good. Thank you for the call. Thanks for the material, the idea. Glad some of that your friends that you might not have talked to in a while actually reconnected with you. I think that's awesome. And as I mentioned the other day, that's the way to use the text line, man, or the phone line. If you have a topic that you want to talk about, especially now when, it's a little bit slower, we're not talking about games and preparation for games and all that. It's a good time to have a subject that, hey, all this feels good, but I still got a question about insert, and you inserted the offensive line. I'm good with that. I think that's awesome. So thanks so much for that call. And thanks, like I said, for the material and the question that you asked. Obviously, it was a really good one. Up next, and just got time for a couple more, got a text from The Raven. Good morning, Q. It's The Raven from SoCal. We have all heard and read NFL players speak on how hard it is to play the Thursday night games, as their bodies have not had the proper time to recover from the car wreck beating they took on Sunday. And the NFL will often profess how they, as a league, are all about player safety. With that being said, wouldn't it make more sense to schedule the Thursday night games between two teams coming off a bye week? That way the two teams going into the game will have had substantial rest and recovery, and after the Thursday contest, they would have 9 days before the next game. Maybe there's something that I'm missing about the impacts that could have on the league's schedule as a whole. However, it just seems to make more sense to me. Your thoughts on this? Raider Nation Boardroom, The Raven from SoCal. That's a great idea. I mentioned what Ryan Hogue, former Raider wide receiver, told to me on Thursday at the radio station. He said, Q, Thursday night game in Denver, that should be outlawed. Like, he was very adamant about that. And normally he doesn't react like that, where it's, as a matter of fact, and almost anger. But, and obviously I don't know. I've never played the game. I've never been a professional. Hell, I've never been to Denver, so I couldn't tell you about it. But just the way that he broke that down makes a lot of sense. And then you just talking about the Thursday night games in general, that also makes sense. I feel like that there's something that they could do about it. I know the one element is that Amazon Prime spent a lot of money on those Thursday night games, so they want some quality, high-profile games to feature as well. Like, remember Thursday night games used to always be like just, oh, womp, womp. That's a terrible game. That's going to be a bad game. Well, they made sure, if you remember last year, they had some really good Thursday night games because they're not just going to spend all that money that they're spending, and they are spending a ton of money for the rights to that Thursday night game just to get some clunkers. They're not going to do that. So we'll see. But at the end of the day, you know how it is, Raven. It's all about what? It's all about the money. However they can make the most money, they're going to do it. Player safety, yeah, that's important. But it's all about the money. Not from me, but from them. Thanks so much for the text. Definitely appreciate you. We'll close out with a call from Puerto Rican Raider. He's calling to talk about the schedule and what he believes the Raiders should be able to do this year and why. Here he is, Puerto Rican Raider.
What up, Q? Puerto Rican Raider. How are you, man? Good morning to you. Just heard your podcast every morning, like every Raider fan. We wake up to your podcast every morning. It's like praying. I pray first, and then I listen to your podcast. But anyway, hey, man, talking about this year, man, I was listening to the podcast, and I really believe we will probably get 10. We will get the 10 games, 10 wins. When I was listening to what King Raider was talking about, and I really see 10 wins in that schedule. So I mean, it's like it's part of one of those years, right, where it's the first time we're asking for a winning season. Before it was like, we probably want to win 3 games. 4 games is good, but this year I think, we should make the playoffs with the with the team we have with Pete Carroll, calling plays, the way he coaches, people's person, athlete. He gets everybody involved. Just with getting him, that's 6 wins, 7 wins at least. And with the talent we got, with the new guys coming in, I don't see why we cannot get 10 wins. I'm sorry, I'm driving and I'm almost crashing here. Anyway, so 10 wins, easy, 10-7. 10-7 will get you in the playoffs, and we'll take it from there, man. Hope you have a good day. There's no Raiders in the East Coast, so I'll see you in Vegas. I'm probably going to take my wife. My wife's never been in any Raider game for 22 years that we've been together. And, of course, now she wants to go because we're in Vegas. So I'll see you this year soon. And, Puerto Rican Raider out.
Every time I say Puerto Rican Raider, all I can think of is that song back in the day. Puerto Rico, oh, Puerto Rico, oh, right? Being in the club and everything. You heard that, you know it was about to go down. That's all I can think of. But thank you for the call. Appreciate you. And first of all, be careful on that road, brother, right? You can call me and leave a message when you get to your destination. Be careful out there on that road. But the reasons that you give for the Raiders to get to 10 wins make sense. It really does. I can go through the schedule, and as I mentioned, I could find 8 wins. I could find 10 wins, right? The key to getting 10 wins and getting to the playoffs is this. You win the games you're supposed to win. All right, there's 3 elements in this. The first element, you win the games you're supposed to win. When we go into it, I was like, oh, yeah, the Raiders should win that game. Those are the ones they should win. Like Carolina, for example, last year. Carolina, after the Raiders were in Baltimore and beat the Ravens, and then they opened up the season, home opener against Carolina at their crib, that's a win. You should win that game. Games like that, you win, right? The ones that you're supposed to win, you win. So that's element number 1. Then you have the 50-50 games where it's a toss-up, like say the Chargers and the Broncos, where kind of expect to split. All right, you split with those guys. But the 50-50 games, you want to get those, like I said, 50-50, you'll take your chances in that one. And then the third element, you get 1 to 2 unexpected wins. I mentioned the Baltimore Ravens. That was week 2 last year. Unexpected win. Nobody believed that the Raiders were going to win that one. They did. That was 1. I can't think of another one, though, right? So that's how you get to 10 wins. Win the games you're supposed to. The 50-50 games, you take your chance, get obviously a few of those under your belt, and then the 1 to 2 unexpected wins. That's how you get to 10. That's how you get to 11. That's how you get to 12 wins. But the Raiders haven't been able to do that. Hell, the Raiders haven't even been able to win games that they're supposed to win. So, I can go through the schedule right now. I can look at it. And matter of fact, I have it right here. And I can say, okay, they're going to win week 1 against New England. The Chargers, 50-50 game. All right, I'll give them that. The Commanders, I'll let them take that L. The Bears, get a W right there. Colts, W right there. Titans, a W right there. The Chiefs, I'll give them an L right there. So, again, that's what? 4 out of the first 7, I gave them wins. All right, then Jaguars, win. That's 5. Broncos, win. That's 6. Cowboys, all right, that's one of those that's going to be unexpected. Okay, boom, 7. Browns, expected. Boom, that's 8. Chargers, I said they're going to split. So, boom, that's 9. Broncos, I said they're going to split. Eagles, here's the second unexpected one. Boom, you win that game, that's 10. Then you got, the Texans, the Giants, and the Chiefs still remain on the season. See, I can work through it. I'm not saying that they're going to win every game I just roll through real quick. But you see what I'm saying? Win the expected games. 50-50 games you take your shot at, and then you have 1 to 2 unexpecteds that you win. If you do that, and you do that to the best of your ability, that's how you can end up with double-digit wins and a playoff berth. But it's easier said than done. It's easy for me to sit here in Studio Q and break that down and get to 10 or 11 wins, as opposed to the Raiders actually going out on the field and making it happen. So that's why I realistically went through and said, okay, I see 8 wins on the schedule, 4 in the first 7, and in the second half of the season, I see another 4 more. And then obviously you hope for a couple more wins here and there, and then boom, you look up and you're sitting there at 10. That's how I came about what I came about with. So thanks so much for the call. Definitely appreciate you. That's going to do it for the show. It's also going to do it for the week. Still got a text from 60s era Raider. Got that coming up on Monday. I also had a really good interview with the legend of ESPN, Chris Berman, on my radio show, Joe and Q, on Thursday. It was fantastic. Somehow I want to bring it to the table, not because he's talking about the Raiders, not because he's talking about the NFL. Actually, he's talking about himself, but it's fantastic. And I grew up, like Chris Berman just about raised me, and I actually told him that in the interview. It's It's like, man, I'm 48 years old. You're going to be celebrating 50 years with ESPN. I just about was raised by you. I told him the story about my dad and the fact that we would always watch SportsCenter before he took me off to school and everything. And it was just incredible. So somehow I want to get that in. I had a really good interview with Charles Davis from CBS Sports and the NFL Network, breaking down like a handful of the players in the Raiders draft class. Really good stuff. CD does a great job. So I want to bring that to the table as well. There's so much, and I guess it's a good problem to have. In May, I got more stuff than I have time for. So that's fantastic. But I want to be able to bring all this stuff to the table because I think it's all some really good stuff as well. And oh, by the way, the Raiders are still making moves. They're still there's still going to be news and notes. There's still going to be calls and texts. Still going to be plenty on the show, and we'll get back at it on Monday. So have a fantastic weekend, Raider Nation. We'll figure it out. It'll be a me and Ari problem, but we'll figure it out. We have no problem doing that, right? So enjoy your weekend. We'll talk again on Monday. Until then, take care of yourself. Take care of your family. Love on your family. Most importantly, as always, just win, baby.